her tribe buried up to her neck in the sand. Cherokee woman closed her eyes to die until the desert planet of Horizon 7 stretched wide and endless under a burning red sun. Long dunes rolled like golden waves, and sharp cliffs stood tall like old guardians watching the land. The settlers called it a frontier world. To them, it was a place of trade, mining, and survival. But to the Cherokee tribe who lived beyond the metal towns, it was sacred ground. They believed the land remembered everything. In the heart of the open desert stood a small tribal settlement made of woven shelters, solar cloth tents, and wind towers that turned slowly in the hot air. The tribe lived simply. They mixed old earth traditions with new frontier tools. They hunted with energy bows but still thanked the spirits of the land. They used water filters, yet they still prayed before rain. Among them lived a young woman named Ayana. Ayana was quiet but strong. She often walked alone along the dunes at sunrise. The elders said she listened too much to the wind. Some said she dreamed too deeply. Since childhood, she had spoken about strange visions, lights beneath the sand, whispers from the earth, storms forming where the sky was clear. At first, people only smiled at her words. But when the trouble began, their smiles faded. It started with the crops. The hydrofields that had grown green for years suddenly turned dry. Water pumps stopped working even though their power cores were full. The wind towers spun wildly at night without any storm. Then came the sand tremors. The ground would shake softly like something huge was moving far below. Fear grew quickly. The elders gathered around the central fire pit, their faces lined with worry. They spoke in low voices about balance and broken harmony. Some believed the settlers' deep mining had disturbed the planet. Others believed something older had awakened. But one elder, Gray Hawk, spoke firmly. "She has seen it in her dreams," he said, pointing toward Ayana. "She has spoken of lights under the sand. She stands between worlds." The tribe turned their eyes toward her. Ayana stood still, her dark hair moving in the wind. She did not look afraid, but her heart beat fast. She had told them about her dreams many times. She had seen a buried shape glowing deep beneath the dunes. She had felt warmth under her feet when others felt nothing. "I did not cause this," she said calmly. "The land is speaking, something below us is waking." But fear can make people hear only what matches their worry. Another elder spoke. "If the land is angry, then someone has broken its trust." Whispers spread among the people. Mothers pulled their children close. Young warriors avoided her eyes. Yana felt the distance growing like a cold wall around her. The next day, a storm formed without warning. The sky turned dark orange and heavy sand fell like rain. 3 shelters collapsed. A wind tower snapped in half. The tribe worked together to protect the elders and children. When the storm ended, silence covered the camp. That night, the council made a choice. They would perform an ancient test of truth, one not used for many generations. It was a ritual of fate. The desert would decide. At sunrise, the tribe gathered outside the settlement near a wide dune. The air was still. No birds flew overhead. The world felt like it was holding its breath. Yana walked forward without resistance. Her mother's eyes were wet, but she said nothing. Gray Hawk looked troubled, yet he did not stop the ritual. The tribe believed deeply in balance. If Ayana was innocent, the land would protect her. If she was not, the desert would take her. They dug a deep hole in the sand. Yana stepped inside. The sand was cool around her feet. She closed her eyes for a moment and whispered a quiet prayer, not for rescue, but for understanding. The tribe slowly filled the hole until only her neck and head remained above the surface. The sand pressed tightly around her body. She could not move her arms. She could not step away. The sun began to rise higher. Gray Hawk spoke the final words of the ritual. "If you walk in harmony, the desert will show mercy." Then the tribe stepped back. Hours passed. The sun burned brighter. The heat pressed down heavily. Sand shifted gently around her face. Yana kept her breathing steady. She remembered her childhood lessons, to stay calm, to trust the earth. But as time moved on, doubt entered her heart. Had she misunderstood her visions? Had she failed to warn them properly? Was she truly meant to suffer for something beyond her control? She opened her eyes and looked at the endless horizon. Far away, beyond the dunes, a small moving shape crossed the sand. At first, she thought it was a mirage. The heat often created illusions. But the shape grew larger. It moved steadily, cutting across the desert like a dark line against gold. It was a rider. The rider wore a long frontier coat that shielded against sandstorms. Beneath him moved a mechanical hoverhorse, its legs gliding just above the surface. Dust swirled behind him in a narrow trail. His name was Rowan. Rowan was known in scattered settlements as a scout. He traveled alone, taking quiet jobs that others avoided. Some said he once served in the Frontier Defense Fleet. Others said he had walked away from something he did not speak about. That morning, Rowan was tracking unusual energy signals through his wrist scanner. Strange pulses had appeared beneath this region of desert, deep and rhythmic, like a slow heartbeat. He followed the readings carefully. As he reached the top of a dune, he saw something unexpected, a human head rising from the sand. Rowan slowed his hoverhorse immediately. Through his scope, he saw her clearly, a woman buried upright, skin flushed by the sun, eyes steady despite exhaustion. His jaw tightened. He scanned the area. The tribe stood far behind, watching silently. This was no accident. This was deliberate. Rowan understood frontier customs. He knew tribes had their own laws. Interfering could bring conflict, but leaving her there felt wrong. His scanner beeped softly again. The strange energy pulses were strongest directly beneath her position. Rowan looked from his screen back to the buried woman. She was not struggling. She was not screaming. She simply stared at the horizon as if waiting for the desert to decide her fate. A strong wind passed between them, lifting grains of sand into the air. For a long moment, Rowan did nothing. Then he guided his hoverhorse down the dune toward her. Behind them, the tribe watched closely. Iana saw him approaching now. The rider stopped several meters away. His face was partly hidden by a dust scarf, but his eyes were sharp and observant. He did not speak at first. He studied the sand around her. He studied the horizon. He studied the tribe in the distance. Finally, he removed his scarf. "Are you here by choice?" he asked in a calm voice. Yana felt her throat dry from heat, but she answered clearly. "No." The word carried softly through the air. Rowan looked back toward the tribe again. He knew this moment would change something. Either he would ride away and let their law stand, or he would step across a line. His scanner beeped again, louder this time. The energy under the sand pulsed stronger. Rowan made his decision. He swung down from his hoverhorse and walked toward her, boots pressing firmly into the dune. Behind him, the tribe began to move forward, and under the desert, something unseen pulsed once more, as if aware that everything was about to change. Rowan moved quickly but carefully, his boots sinking slightly into the hot sand as he reached Ayana. The sun stood high above them now, and the heat made the air shake like water. He knelt beside her, studying the sand packed tightly around her body. Whoever buried her had done it firmly. She would not free herself without help. Behind him, several members of the tribe walked closer, their steps slow and cautious. Rowan could feel their eyes on his back. He understood that he was stepping into something sacred and dangerous at the same time. He spoke quietly to Ayana. "Can you breathe well?" She nodded slightly. "Yes, but not for long." Her voice was calm, but he could hear the exhaustion beneath it. Her lips were dry and grains of sand clung to her skin. Rowan took a small water flask from his belt and gently held it near her mouth. "Small sips," he said. She drank slowly, careful not to choke. The cool water seemed to bring life back into her eyes. The tribe stopped a short distance away. Greyhawk stood at the front, his expression serious. Rowan glanced at him but said nothing. He turned back to Ayana. "I need to know," Rowan said softly. "If I free you, will your people see it as breaking their law?" Ayana hesitated. "Yes," she admitted, "but they also believe the desert will decide. Maybe you are part of that decision." Rowan considered her words. The energy readings from his scanner continued to pulse. Something beneath the sand was active, and it was strongest directly below her. He made his choice. Using a compact digging tool from his belt, Rowan began loosening the sand carefully around her shoulders. He worked slowly so the packed layers would not collapse suddenly. Each movement sent warm grains sliding away. Murmurs rose from the tribe behind him. A young warrior stepped forward angrily, but Greyhawk raised a hand, stopping him. The elder's eyes remained fixed on Rowan, watching closely. The wind picked up slightly, carrying whispers of sand across the surface. Yana felt the pressure around her body slowly lessen. For hours she had been trapped, and now each movement felt strange and heavy. Rowan continued digging, his movements steady and patient. "You should not have come," she said quietly. Rowan smiled faintly without looking up. "I hear that often." After several minutes, he cleared enough space for her arms to move. He helped her lift them free first, allowing blood to flow back through her muscles. She winced slightly but did not complain. "Slowly," he said. Your legs may feel weak. Finally, with one strong pull, he helped her step out of the hole. She stumbled forward and he caught her before she fell. For a brief moment, she leaned against him, feeling the strength of someone used to surviving alone. The tribe watched in silence. Rowan guided her toward his hoverhorse, giving her shade from its wide saddle canopy. He handed her another small drink of water. Gray Hawk approached slowly. The elder's presence felt heavy but calm. "You have chosen to interfere," Gray Hawk said. Rowan stood up straight but did not show aggression. "I chose to help someone who did not wish to die." Gray Hawk studied him for a long moment. "The desert test is sacred, but perhaps the desert has spoken through you." The younger warrior looked angry, but he stayed silent. Yana stepped forward, her legs still unsteady. "I told you I did not bring the storms," she said gently. "Something under the sand is waking. He has tools that can see it." Rowan lifted his wrist scanner and showed the display to Gray Hawk. A glowing pulse moved slowly across the screen. "This energy is not natural," Rowan explained. "It feels like technology, very old technology." The tribe exchanged uneasy looks. Gray Hawk nodded slowly. "Then your path is not finished," he said to Ayana. "But your return to us will take time." It was not a rejection, but it was not forgiveness either. Ayana felt a quiet sadness but accepted his words. Rowan mounted the hoverhorse and offered her a hand. After a moment of hesitation, she climbed up behind him. The machine lifted slightly above the sand, humming softly. They rode away from the tribe, leaving the settlement behind. The desert stretched wide ahead of them. For a while, neither spoke. The only sound was the wind and the gentle vibration of the hoverhorse. Finally, Rowan broke the silence. "You said you had visions." "Yes. Tell me everything." Yana looked out at the dunes as she spoke. She described the glowing shape beneath the sand, the feeling of warmth under her feet, and the strange dreams where the ground seemed alive. She told him how she had tried to warn her people, but fear had changed how they heard her words. Rowan listened carefully. He had seen many strange things on frontier worlds, but something about this felt different. As they traveled, the sky began to darken slightly. Clouds formed in thin lines across the horizon, moving faster than normal weather patterns. Rowan checked his scanner again. "The signal is stronger now," he said. "We are moving closer to the source." Suddenly, movement appeared ahead. 3 riders approached from another direction, their hoverbikes fast and aggressive. Their gear looked mismatched and their movements felt careless. "Raiders," Rowan muttered. He slowed slightly, guiding the hoverhorse to a defensive angle. The riders circled them, trying to block their path. One called out loudly, "Travelers pay toll." Rowan kept his voice calm. "We are just passing through." The riders moved closer, but Rowan's hand rested near his weapon, not in threat, only ready. Yana watched quietly, sensing his control and patience. The wind suddenly shifted. Sand lifted around them in a swirling cloud, reducing visibility. Rowan used the moment wisely. He guided the hoverhorse through a narrow gap, avoiding conflict without striking. Soon the riders disappeared behind them. Yana felt a small smile form. "You avoid fights." "Fights create more problems," Rowan replied simply. They continued deeper into the desert. As the sun began to lower, the sand changed color, glowing orange and gold. In the distance, a faint light flickered beneath the surface, almost invisible unless you knew where to look. Yana felt her heart beat faster. "That's it," she whispered. Rowan slowed the hoverhorse, staring at the glowing patch ahead. The scanner beeped loudly now, almost constantly. Whatever lay beneath the sand was close. The air felt charged like the moment before lightning strikes. Rowan turned toward Yana. "Are you ready?" She nodded slowly, fear and determination mixing together. They stepped down from the hoverhorse and walked toward the glowing sand. With every step, the ground felt warmer. And beneath their feet, something ancient began to wake. The sand beneath Rowan and Ayana's feet felt warmer with every step they took. The glow that had first appeared as a faint shimmer now pulsed softly like a slow heartbeat beneath the surface. The desert around them was quiet, almost too quiet, as if even the wind was waiting. Rowan crouched and placed his palm near the ground without touching it. Heat rose gently through the air. His wrist scanner flashed with bright readings, the signal stronger than before. "This is not natural weather," he said quietly. "Something mechanical, something old." Yana closed her eyes for a moment. She could feel the same energy she had sensed in her dreams. It was familiar but overwhelming at the same time. The warmth felt alive, not dangerous but powerful. "It's here," she whispered. "The thing I saw." Rowan nodded and began unpacking small tools from a side compartment on the hoverhorse. He unfolded a compact scanning drone and released it into the air. The small machine hovered above the sand, projecting a faint blue grid downward. Lines appeared on Rowan's screen, forming shapes beneath the surface. He frowned slightly. "This structure is huge," he said, "and buried deep." The drone's scanner showed a curved metallic surface hidden under layers of sand and stone. It looked smooth and ancient, unlike anything built by modern settlers. Iana stepped closer, feeling drawn toward it. Her heart beat faster, but she did not feel fear. Instead, she felt recognition. "Can we reach it?" she asked. Rowan studied the readings carefully. "There's an access point nearby, maybe exposed by shifting sand." They began searching, moving slowly across the dune. The sky above darkened slightly as clouds gathered again. The strange storm seemed connected to whatever lay below. After several minutes, Rowan spotted a flat metal edge half covered by sand. Together, they brushed away the grains until a circular hatch became visible. The surface was covered with unfamiliar markings. Some looked like symbols, others like patterns meant to be touched. Yana knelt beside it, her fingers hovering above the metal. She felt a soft vibration. "It feels awake," she said quietly. Rowan glanced at her. "Careful." She nodded and slowly placed her hand on one of the glowing patterns. The hatch reacted instantly. A soft hum spread through the air. Lines of light moved across the metal, tracing shapes like flowing water. The ground trembled gently, not violently, but enough to make Rowan step back in surprise. The hatch slid open silently, revealing a narrow passage leading downward. Cool air flowed upward, carrying a faint metallic scent. Rowan checked his scanner again. "Energy levels are rising. If this thing powers the storms, we need to understand it." He turned to Ayana. "We go together, stay close." She nodded. They descended carefully into the passage. Soft light illuminated their path, glowing from the walls themselves. The interior felt ancient but perfectly preserved, as if time had never touched it. The tunnel opened into a large chamber filled with tall structures shaped like curved pillars. At the center floated a sphere of light, slowly spinning. Rowan stared in amazement. "This technology, it's far beyond anything I've seen." Yana felt a wave of warmth spread through her chest. Images flashed briefly in her mind, sandstorms calming, green plants growing, rivers flowing. She gasped softly. "It controls balance," she said suddenly. Rowan looked at her. "What do you mean?" "The visions," she explained. "This device keeps the land stable. The storm started because something disturbed it." Rowan nodded slowly. That matched his earlier thoughts. As they approached the glowing sphere, holographic images suddenly appeared around them. Scenes of the desert from long ago floated in the air. The land looked different then, greener, calmer, full of life. A voice echoed softly, not in words but in tones that translated through Rowan's translator device. "Environmental stabilization system active." Rowan's eyes widened. "It's a planetary regulator." Yana watched the images carefully. One scene showed deep drilling machines cutting into the ground near the edge of the desert. "The miners," she said quietly. "They damaged it." Before Rowan could respond, another sound echoed behind them, footsteps. He turned quickly, hand moving toward his weapon. 3 figures entered the chamber, wearing heavy frontier armor marked with mining corporation symbols. "Well," one of them said, smiling slightly. "Looks like you found it for us." Rowan stepped slightly in front of Ayana, protective but calm. "You followed us." "Of course," the leader replied. "We've been tracking these signals for weeks, didn't expect help from a cowboy and a dreamer." Yana felt anger rise but stayed silent. The miners moved closer, scanning the glowing sphere with greedy interest. "This technology could change everything," one said. "Unlimited control over environment systems." Rowan shook his head slightly. "It's already damaged. If you try to control it without understanding, you'll destroy the planet's balance completely." The leader laughed softly. "Balance doesn't pay credits." Yana stepped forward suddenly. "This device is not a weapon or a tool for profit. It protects the land. If you break it, the storms will grow worse." The leader looked at her with amusement. "And who are you?" "Someone who listens," she replied calmly. The air grew tense. Rowan realized they could not win through force alone. He needed another approach. Quietly, he activated a small control panel near the base of the sphere. Lights shifted and a holographic interface appeared. "Yana," he whispered, "you said you feel connected to it. Try." She hesitated only a moment before placing her hand into the glowing interface. The chamber brightened instantly. Soft waves of light spread outward. The sphere slowed its rotation, stabilizing. Outside, far above them, the storm clouds began to weaken. The miners looked shocked. "What did you do?" one demanded. Iana focused deeply. The visions guided her movements. She adjusted glowing symbols, aligning patterns until the energy flow became smooth. Rowan watched the scanner. "Storm intensity dropping," he said quietly. The leader stepped forward angrily. "Stop! That power belongs to us." Rowan moved to block him, not attacking but standing firm. "This ends now. The land comes first." The chamber filled with steady light as the system stabilized further. Outside, the desert winds slowed. Yana opened her eyes slowly. The sphere glowed softly now, calm and balanced. "It's not fully repaired," she said, "but it's stable." The miners stood frozen, realizing their control had slipped away. Rowan and Ayana exchanged a look of relief. For the first time since they met, hope felt real. But Rowan knew the journey was not over yet. They still had to face the tribe and decide what to do with the powerful secret they had uncovered beneath the desert. The chamber slowly returned to silence. The glowing sphere floated calmly at the center, its light steady now instead of wild. The humming sound that had once felt unstable was smooth and balanced. The air inside the underground structure felt cooler and lighter. Rowan kept his eyes on the mining men. They looked frustrated, but they could see the situation had changed. The storms above were already weakening. The power they wanted was no longer chaotic, it was controlled. "This system is not yours," Rowan said calmly, "and it never was." The leader of the miners looked at the stabilized sphere, then at Iana. For the first time, he did not look confident. "You think you've solved it," he said, "but people will come back for this." "Maybe," Rowan replied, "but now the land is not breaking. That matters more." The miners exchanged quiet looks. Without the unstable energy spikes, their scanners showed no immediate advantage. After a tense moment, they slowly stepped back. "This isn't over," the leader said before turning away. Rowan watched them leave through the tunnel. He did not chase them. He knew this victory was not about defeating people. It was about restoring balance. When they were gone, he turned to Ayana. "You did it," he said. She shook her head gently. "We did it." She looked at the sphere one more time. It felt peaceful now, like a heartbeat that had found its rhythm again. She placed her hand over her chest, feeling her own heart steady. "We should return to the surface," Rowan said. "Your tribe deserves to see what has changed." They walked back through the glowing tunnel and climbed toward the open hatch. As they stepped into the sunlight, the difference was clear. The sky above was no longer dark orange. The heavy storm clouds had thinned into soft white streaks. The wind was gentle, not sharp. The air felt lighter. Iana took a slow breath. "It's calmer." Rowan checked his scanner. "Energy levels stable. The storms should continue fading." They mounted the hoverhorse and began riding back toward her tribe's settlement. As they traveled, they noticed small signs of change. Sand that had once swirled wildly now rested quietly. In the distance, they could see green patches returning to areas that had been dry. By the time they reached the edge of the tribal land, several members were already waiting. Word had spread quickly. Gray Hawk stood at the front again, but this time his expression was different. It was not fear or anger. It was uncertainty mixed with hope. Yana stepped down from the hoverhorse before Rowan could offer help. Her steps were steady now. The tribe looked at her in silence. Gray Hawk spoke first. "The storms have weakened." "Yes," Yana replied calmly. "The cause was not a curse. It was an ancient machine buried under the sand. The miners damaged it. We repaired it." Murmurs moved through the group. A young woman stepped forward. "You were telling the truth." Yana nodded gently. "I tried." Gray Hawk lowered his head slightly. "The ritual was meant to protect the tribe, but fear clouded our judgment." There was no shouting, no anger, only quiet reflection. Iana looked at the faces around her, people she had grown up with, people who had doubted her, people who had once trusted her. "I do not hate you," she said softly. "We were all afraid, but fear should not guide our choices." Her words carried weight. Gray Hawk stepped closer. "You walked into the desert with courage. You returned with balance. The tribe needs that strength." The younger warriors lowered their eyes in respect. One of the elders spoke gently. "Will you guide us now?" Gianna felt the meaning behind the question. They were not just asking about the machine beneath the sand. They were asking about the future. She looked back at Rowan for a moment. He stood quietly near the hoverhorse, allowing her to stand at the center. He did not seek attention or praise. His role had always been to help and move forward. Yana turned back to her people. "I will guide," she said slowly, "but not alone. We must listen to both tradition and knowledge. The land is alive, but so is the future." Gray Hawk nodded. The tribe gathered closer around her. The fear that once divided them was slowly replaced by unity. As evening approached, the sky turned soft pink and gold. The air felt peaceful. Children began to laugh again. The wind towers turned smoothly instead of wildly. Later, as the sun began to set, Rowan prepared his gear quietly. He tightened the straps on his saddle and checked his scanner one last time. Iana walked toward him. "You are leaving," she said gently. Rowan gave a small smile. "That's usually how my story goes." She studied him carefully. "The desert did not bury me to lose me. And it did not send you here by accident." He looked toward the horizon. The open frontier stretched endlessly ahead. "I don't belong in one place," he said softly. "Maybe not," she replied, "but you don't always have to walk alone." For a long moment, neither spoke. The tribe had accepted her again. The storms were calming. The machine beneath the sand was stable. For the first time in many days, everything felt balanced. Rowan looked back at the settlement. He saw people rebuilding shelters. He saw elders speaking peacefully. He saw hope returning. Then he looked at Iana. "You would have survived without me," he said. "Maybe," she answered, "but you chose not to ride away." That choice meant something. The desert wind moved gently between them. Finally, Rowan adjusted his gloves and nodded. "I'll stay for a while, at least until we know the system below is fully stable." A small smile appeared on Iana's face. "That is enough." They stood side by side as the sun dipped below the dunes. The sky deepened into purple and orange shades. The desert, once harsh and angry, now looked calm and wide. Below their feet, the ancient machine hummed quietly, protecting the land once more. Above them, stars began to appear one by one. The tribe gathered near the central fire, not in fear this time, but in celebration of survival and unity. Yana knew her path had changed. She was no longer just the girl with strange dreams. She had become a bridge between old wisdom and new discovery. Rowan remained near the edge of the firelight, watching the horizon as he always did. But this time he was not alone in his watch. The desert had tested them both, and together they had answered. The wind carried soft warmth across the dunes, and the land, once restless, finally felt at peace.